Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us, myself, as well as Trina from World Food Future for this very interesting session that we've called Table Talks, CB Reflections, Circuit Breaker Reflections. And today's topic is about F&B delivery takeaways, which is kind of apt because in less than 3 hours, we're actually going to phase 2. So I swear to you that we didn't have anything to do with the timing of phase 2, but it's great that we're all able to gather here today to talk about this. My name is Farhan, and I'm the editor of The Peak, and I'll be your co-moderator for the session today, together with Trina, who is the founder of World Food Future. And our panelists for today, the 4 of them, I'm very glad that they're able to join us today. Of course, we have Loh Lik Peng, who is the founder of Unlisted Collection. It's a hospitality empire, for those who don't know. It spans across 6 cities, including a very interesting County Kerry, which is in Ireland. We have Alan Goh as well, who is the founder of Odell Eats. It's a complete solution to manage restaurant delivery and takeaway. If you've never given it a shot, please do. There's a lot of very interesting restaurants, a lot of hawkers available on Odell Eats. And of course, we have Beppe De Vito. So Beppe is actually the head honcho of the Il Lido group of restaurants and bars. They are reopening tomorrow, of course. So, if he looks a bit frazzled, please forgive him because he just came back literally 10-15 minutes ago to join us for today. So thank you, Beppe, for joining us, in your busy schedule. And last but not least, of course, we have Chu Xian, which is the co-founder of a really, really cool restaurant concept called Cosmos that uses ugly fruits and vegetables and sustainably sourced seafood, secondary cuts of meat to create the dishes for the restaurant. I want to pass it over to Trina Liang, who is the founder of World Food Future, who will tell you all a bit more about what World Food Future is about. Over to you, Trina.
Thanks, Han. And welcome everybody to Table Talk. We have about 150 people with us today, so I am really hoping for some great questions. Table Talk is proudly co-hosted by World Food Future and Peak Magazine. World Food Future, for those of you who don't know, is an annual conference where we focus on food, topics such as food sustainability, food security, and the future of our food. The proceeds of that conference go towards our school nutrition education program called Footsteps, and we roll that out to primary schools in Singapore, focusing on the lower income kids. And for more info, please check out our website link and like us on all the social media links, and do post questions. We'll be checking all the questions coming through. So today's topic, as you all know, is F&B delivery takeaways. And when Han and I decided on the date of this webinar, I honestly swear we didn't know it was going to be the day before phase 2, the day before the great big opening. So it seems very fortuitous and serendipitous that we are at this point in time where we're reflecting on such a surreal circuit breaker period. And with us here today are some great F&B leaders in Singapore to share their professional reflections as well as their personal reflections on such a crazy time, really. So maybe let me kick off with the first question. And my first question to the whole panel is, looking back on this circuit breaker period, what are the 1 or 2 searing images that you guys have of this time period? Maybe elaborate on what those images make you feel. So I'll hand it off to you guys.
Outlets have been closed. I've been walking around from outlet to outlet just to meet some of the guys, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to be able to jaywalk with no traffic, and I walk through Boat Quay every day as well, and so even when there's no traffic, no vehicle traffic, the quiet from even the people, or the lack of rather, that's definitely something that we know we're never gonna see again. So it will forever stay in my mind.
Okay, very nice, very beautiful and poetic, all three of you. But of course, Trishian, I hope you don't say empty roads as well. What was the one searing image for you?
Actually, they've already said like most of the related images. Because I in my restaurant is just run by just two people, it's myself and Lisa. So basically, throughout this whole period, I've gone like not to many places except for my home and the restaurant. So I just share an image that is more relatable to me. So my restaurant is a 16-seater open kitchen concept. We usually have a very nice, cozy dining space, but throughout this whole circuit breaker period, it is we see like stacks of flour, bottles, like all the packaging, on the dining tables, and it's just a little bit sad, like it's a very cozy dining space, but now it looks like a production kitchen. Yeah, so I think this is something that I didn't expect. So yeah, I guess it's a different experience.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Just wanted to say again that if you have any questions, please do send it over to Minnie in the chat, and we will be saying it out loud. You can direct it to anyone. So please, if for example you have a question for Ping, just make sure that it's tell Minnie that this question is for Ping or is for Alan, and we will make sure that these questions are directed at the relevant personalities. I do have a question because I'm more of a I'm from the Peak, so we do a lot more business kind of stories, a lot more luxury lifestyle. And this question is, of course, to all four of you once again. But we'll start with Peng first. Peng, what would you say were some of the life and business lessons that you have learned from this crisis that you will take or apply moving forward to your business?
Well, I would say the life lesson for me was to kind of slow things down and do spend more time with the family, because the one thing I learned about this crisis was really how much I travel and not see my family, because I've really been stuck in Singapore for the last 3 months and they've never seen so much of me. And it's one of the silver linings of this crisis, I would say, that I got to see so much of them. On the business front, the one thing it really taught me was that the diversification is not enough as a strategy. You hear a lot about investment people telling you about diversification, right? But one thing that really struck me was how this crisis spread around the globe, every corner of the globe, in a matter of a week or two. We saw all our businesses freeze from the northern to the southern hemispheres, restaurants, hotels, everything freeze in the space of 2 weeks. And so it doesn't matter if you spread your businesses around the globe. There's no way of escaping a crisis of this magnitude. And you, in addition to diversification, I think one thing that has taught me, you need a really strong balance sheet. You need to really be able to have fairly deep reserves to call on if things literally just grind to a halt, in the space of a few days. So that would be my 2 takeaways, I would say.
Do you have to make any difficult decisions at any point during the time of the crisis?
Yes, I think all of us will have had to face, all of us who had some businesses that we looked after would have had to face a lot of difficult decisions. And I think, one of the things that you really look at is your staff, because they are the ones who are at the front line of this. It's not just an economic thing, right? I think the healthcare issues for the staff too. How do you protect your staff from infection while this thing is going on? Because a lot of our staff are frontline workers, and you do worry for them. And then obviously the economic impact. How do you keep your businesses afloat? How do you look after your cash flow? And how do you look after your staff while doing all that, right? So I think you definitely have to make some difficult balances about cutting wages, things like that, and you have to look at every corner of your business to see what you need to do to survive. So all the preconceived notions about what you think you need to do for a business goes out the window. When you have zero income coming in, you adapt very fast because the house is burning down.
fair point. Ellen, how about yourself? Any life and business lessons that you've learned?
Life lesson, I guess it's more of during this period of time is you realize that it's no longer about the individual. It's no longer about yourself, but really as a community as a whole. You know, like how Singapore as a nation, right? The world as, you know, Asians, as people, everyone around like World Health Organization. I think everyone plays a part during this period, and you realize that how, especially in our business, when we do this, is not just about, oh, I want my business to do well, but how can we also help the hawkers, the restaurants? Sometimes we neglect the high-end hotels. They are also suffering. Everyone who's involved in the economy is suffering, and how can everyone help each other out? That's why you will see, you know, when bubble tea, when there was, you know, the bubble tea shops cannot open, that's when they collaborate with each other. And I think this sense of togetherness really stands out for me, that you need to work together, you know, be it as a family, you know, support each other. When you're sick, you want to protect your family. And as businesses, you want to see, okay, if I'm doing well, how can I help others? You know, to bring together and help everyone push through these difficult times. And I think the last thing is a sense of purpose, because I think when circuit breaker started, that was the time when a lot of restaurants are scrambling to get online, because they suddenly have to look for an alternative to their business. And for us, because we've been doing this for a few years, but we have never seen such a surge of volume coming in. And there were days where we practically Monday to Sunday, we don't sleep. We work through the night just to get restaurants up, because, you know, every time we close our eyes, we'll think that, hey, someone out there needs our help. If I forget about him, the next day he's gonna have one more day of no sales, you know, and we just can't rest. And I think that's when that sense of purpose push us through, and it really helped the entire team work together. And I think that really is something that I can bring through, you know, for the rest of my life, to think that when you have a sense of purpose, it really empowers you to do a lot more for those people around you. And it's never about yourself. It's really with that sense of, I want to help you. Yeah, so I think that's the key things that I have taken from this COVID period.
Those are definitely very good life and business lessons, actually. Beppe, how about yourself? Life lesson, business lesson?
Well, I think business-wise, it was the lesson was to act early, you know, to act timely, to you know, do not hesitate in taking decisions that may hurt a few people, and but hopefully would save the business. And that's what we did from the very beginning. You know, we had to take some drastic measures. We had to let go of quite a number of colleagues, unfortunately. We knew how tough it was going to be for most foreigners anyway. We had quite a number of them on board. And plan ahead, you know, and plan already. I mean, you know, we right away from the very beginning, we say, okay, we know what are we going to be what are we going to be when we open, which outlet could be doing what, you know, and started planning for that, you know, and scheduling for that, and reviewing the offer, and lots of research, lots of studying, you know, how to get on the, you know, various platforms. Because, you know, we had one outlet which was already geared towards that, you know, more, especially with the kind of food that it does, you know, and the pizza. But most of the other outlets, the fine dining, the bars, you know, not so obvious to transplant them to a delivery mode. So we had to kind of reinvent ourselves in some cases, and even invent a new product during this crisis, you know, which we managed to do eventually, later than we wished for. But yeah, so it's been. I don't think we never had to rush to make so many decisions as we've made during this period. Actually, one would think that, oh, you know, everything stops, you can take a break, but actually. We've never taken so many decisions as we did, especially during the first 2 weeks of this circuit breaker.
Last but not least, of course, Chu Xian, any lessons that you've learned during this period?
Right. So for life lessons, I just thought that it's very interesting to observe how, you know, how after all, everybody is more or less the same. Like this pandemic really made me feel that like we are all like people, like no matter who you are, what's your job, we are all equally affected. And strangely, it makes me feel that we are more connected than ever, like through this pandemic. And I thought that was really nice, to remember this very human moment, right? In terms of business, our Cosmo is a very like a curated dining experience. It is a lot on the storytelling, the service, along with the food. So although our food is refined, it makes a bit it is very difficult for us to suddenly switch to takeaways, because after all we are a two-man team. We simply cannot produce as the tickets come in and then we send out the food. It's just not possible for us. And luckily for us, we are already very streamlined, so we don't have any there's only 2 employees, so we don't have any like livelihood, to like our employees' livelihood to think about. Yeah, so for us, while once the pandemic, is gaining traction, we sort of already started to transit towards selling bread, because bread is a staple that can be pre-ordered, can be pre-baked, and it can our customers can reheat them in their own homes, and that's why we started selling them even before the circuit breaker kicked in. So that actually sort of like got our word out to other customers, and they started to check in with us, what else are we selling. So we've been selling bread, kombucha, pasta kits, basically things that can be prepped in advance and can be collected or sit well for delivery, as compared to the refined food that we were originally selling. So that is a very big twist in our actual business operations. So we had to adapt pretty quickly as a small team, but luckily for us, because we are also small, so we are agile as well.
Great, thank you so much, Chushian.
Hey, there's a question that came in for you, actually. Basically, someone is asking, actually, Yulin is asking whether you would operate professionally in terms of your menu quite the same as before going forward, or are there going to be a lot of tweaks?
Moving forward, as I mentioned earlier, we will be reopening next Tuesday. So you can actually make the reservations right now. So we'll be still reverting back to our same 6-course carte blanche menu. So similarly, we want to use the aesthetically filtered fruits and vegetables from importers, that could be oddly shaped, oddly sized, overstocked and overripe. And you'll be very surprised that during this circuit breaker period, right, there are still a lot of like filtered fruits and vegetables. So it's like it's not really zero waste. Like everybody is fighting for the food, but it doesn't mean that there's nothing being filtered. So of course we want to continue to use these items along with locally grown edible wheats and flowers. Is something that we've been trying to do. We've been trying to promote, from day one. So all of this will stay. But we also see that throughout this whole circuit breaker period, there's a lot of people that comes to us to buy bread, to buy bottled kombucha. So this particular segment of customers, they have grown to quite significant size, but we may not be able to accommodate all their orders anymore. So we will change it to a once a week like retail instead. So people will pre-order, and on every Sunday we will churn out all of these baked goods and pasta kits for them.
So Alan, actually I wanted to ask you a question about the hawkers. So we tried very hard to get hawkers to come on this panel, but I wondered whether you had a point of view from the hawker side, given your delivery business, and maybe share with us some success stories about how they have pivoted to deliveries and digitalization.
I think when we look at the hawkers, those that's working with us, I mean, there's a few, right? I've got a few bak kut teh stores, and I've got the zi cha stores, those Chinese wok fry places. And I think this whole period, that's when they have their staff, their workers who previously are not tech savvy, and they tend to I'll just do my pen and paper method. And I think I agree that because of whatever is happening, this pandemic has forced people to adopt technology, and that because of the way that it works, people are willing to adapt. And I think adapt is the key word during this period. You have to adapt to survive. And that's when you see a lot of those, even the older folks, they are trying to learn, and we will go down. We do go down sometimes to train them, or we'll come up with Chinese or English videos to train them. And I think for that, interestingly, some of them actually do better during this time than their dine-in period, right? I think that's because now you can reach out to more people, right? You don't have to take the orders one by one. The orders can come in, you can pre-prepare. And I think if you look at, for example, King Eng Ki, right? Not exactly the hawker, but very old school, right? And during this period, I think when circuit breaker came in, I won't share too much of the figures, but essentially the online sales was able to sustain that, right? There's not much of the difference from when there wasn't. So with that, they can continue, and the owners actually started to say, oh, for some of the deliveries, I'll do it myself. So that still brings back that connection, because like I always go back to the point, F&B is still a social business, right? You want to have that social element there. And I think that's a very good thing. And you also see some of the hawkers, what they do is they write notes. So they say thank you, they write notes, and the users, the customers, when they receive this, they'll post on Instagram. And that's when you can see like, there's a lot of Facebook pages that were started to, save the hawkers. But so I think, of course, I wouldn't say that on our side we have that many hawkers. I think a lot of them also do their own deliveries, right? They would tell people that, oh, you can also call me, right? And they arrange their own fleet. So I think during this period, it's really more of the hawkers learning to adapt, and some of them work together. If you look at Yishun Park Hawker, they have, I think, 60 plus hawker stores. They consolidate the orders and they send out together, right? And this allows them to hit the minimum basket. The unit economics will make sense for them. So I think that's what we have seen, and we are very glad that we can play a small part in helping them, tide through this period.
It's a really interesting point that you brought there about business and about sustainability, because a really good question came in about profitability, actually. So the question, the person asked to all of y'all here, is whether the island-wide delivery model is it sustainable for all of y'all, for most restaurants, and is it actually profitable for you from an economics kind of perspective? Maybe we'll start with you, Peng.
I would say that for the majority of the restaurateurs in this chat, it probably isn't viable because the commissions that they charge are too high. If you look at a typical mid-end to high-end restaurant, we don't have the margins to give 25 to 30%. I think it might work for QSR type restaurants, but certainly the overheads that we have, it probably doesn't work. It might work if we adapted our concepts and went to ghost kitchens, but if you look at the business structure of most of our restaurants, where we are in CBD type areas, we're paying rent at a certain rate, we have a certain number of staff at front of house, back of house. Once you add all those things up, then the delivery platforms generally don't work. Obviously, in these circumstances where things are very different, very constrained, then you might take a different view about whether you can rely on some of those platforms temporarily. But economics in the long term do not work.
Do you agree with that, Beppe? Is that something that for you
absolutely,
applies
yes.
as well?
Yes, I totally agree. That is why we had to kind of come out, and most people did as well, come up with a menu which is totally different. First of all, that could travel as well as possible, but also that could allow the few people that we had left behind to prepare more than the usual covers that they would have done. So it's with the right concept, and as Peng rightly said, mostly towards QSR, lower average check, from the $15-20 average check. With the right concept, it can work. Absolutely, I believe in that. In fact, we are looking into setting up a cloud kitchen, from which not to run a single brand. It's not just for Grammy. Grammy is the priority because it will need, now that we're open and we need the kitchens for the walk-ins, for the diners. We definitely are looking for an alternative. and we are looking into the how to put together different several concepts under one umbrella, and do delivery out of that. Obviously, menus will have very little, if anything at all, to do with what we currently offer, say a brunch or art. The more casual places, obviously, there can be more some adaptation, but it would be about creating new concepts, new brands, or even perhaps bringing under our umbrella chefs like Banks Priest. Just say these restaurants can do it, but perhaps if he's keen into a collaboration, then do some recipes for him and sell it for him, that kind of thing. So I'm actually looking into this right now, and I'm looking to set up something before the end of the year.
Okay, very quickly, I want to jump to Ping. A very interesting question came in about your previous answer. He or she wanted to know, what do you mean about, what about the development of dark kitchens? Is that something that is possible in the future, especially because the pandemic or another second wave might occur, that sort of thing? What are your thoughts about dark kitchens and the development of it?
Well, we've studied a few, and I think currently the economics of the dark kitchens, the way they are set up, again, are skewed towards more, I would say, QSR type restaurants, the ones who are doing a single product, whether it's a hamburger or a sort of a taco concept or something. Because if you look at the majority of the setups of the dark kitchens, they're too small, and they are too sort of constrained by size as well as equipment level to really churn out the kind of products that like a Grammy might need, where he's doing multiple different types of pastas, things like that. So at the moment, the ghost kitchens that are out there are fairly simple. They are catered to a certain segment of the market. I would say restaurateurs like ours probably need more sophisticated facilities, and so it might make sense for us to go and set up our own industrial or central kitchens, But the way the current models of the dark kitchens here, they are designed for single product sort of delivery, and I think it would be hard to make a lot of the type of restaurants we on this panel do in that sort of setup. So, but it's definitely something that's developing, and it's definitely something we're looking at, and we would like to look at it a bit deeper in future, but probably at a more sophisticated level than what's currently out there.
Thank you very much. Alan, I wanted to ask you something in relation to Ping's comments about delivery being actually unsustainable in the long run. What are your thoughts about, kind of delivery for food, especially for hawkers, that sort of thing? And what are your plans moving forward for Odell?
I think, okay, this is one tough question, because when it comes to sustainability, there's a few factors involved, right? The first thing is logistic, right? Everyone will know that there's Meituan in China that actually managed to gain profitability, but when you look at Singapore, that's because your logistic cost is going to be higher, right? And consumers, interestingly, typically they are not willing to pay for delivery, right? So when it comes to this, in the past, you're willing to take a Grab out to dine in, and then you take a Grab home. But right now, you want the food to be sent to you, but you don't want to pay $10 for it, right? For the delivery. So when it comes to this, I think there's a number of factors involved. You need to look into market education, letting the consumers know that there's cost involved. You can't expect the restaurants to be absorbing that part of it, right? And to put in a word for the marketplaces, obviously, our business model is different from theirs, but when you look at what they are doing, typically when it comes to the small orders, when they deliver one bubble tea, as much as they take that, that's why I agree with them. When it comes to the QSR, it might make a little bit of sense. But when it comes to the fine dining restaurants, when your ticket size is higher, then you're paying too much, right? And that's when you need to look into, okay, can I create my own delivery fleet? I agree with the statement about your menu. You cannot put your full menu. It has to be a scaled down menu, right? Because not all food are good for travel, right? And you have to churn out quickly if you want to make a good profit out of it. So you need to really engineer your menu to really suit the delivery market. And whether it's sustainable, I do think it's possible, as long as you get the math right? How much should the consumer pay, right? And from there, what would be my cost, and how can I do it such that even if I don't have a dark kitchen, even if I'm operating for my restaurant, is there an hour before the crowd comes in to dine in, I can prepare the food and send it out, right? That's an additional income for them. So these are all the little things that we have been guiding our restaurants along the way. And there are a lot that's doing. For them, because the math is on their side, they handle the cost, they determine what delivery fee to set. So when we give our merchants that control, they are able to see, okay, if I want to build a sustainable business, if the cost that I want to set at the end of the day is 15%, how can I work backwards? And that's where, for us, we will guide them along the way. So I think it's possible. It's just a matter of what kind of concept you want to really push out. Yeah.
Okay, actually, I wanted to go back in time a little bit. Pepe and Peng, you guys really started the Save F&B Singapore group, and that really put a national focus on F&B as an industry, and also made the government eventually sit up and listen to you guys. And can you perhaps go back a little bit in time and tell us about the feelings when you set this up? What was your intention? How do you feel about it now? And going forward, how do you feel that this group can move ahead?
Well, at the time, I would say, the F&B industry was very fragmented. Of course, there's RAS and all that, which did a pretty good job raising the issues about rental and things like that. But the vast majority of the independent restaurants are not RAS members. And we are a fairly fragmented lot. All of us were complaining in the background, but nobody was hearing us, right? So I think the Save F&B allowed us to really kind of give a coherent voice to our concerns. And that really was the purpose of it, and to try and have a respectful conversation with authorities, as well as with the landlords about legitimate concerns, instead of just complaining in the background and getting frustrated because we weren't being heard. So I think it was just more that sort of platform. Pepe, you want to add to that? I guess it's...
Well, I agree. I mean, it's exactly what you said. It was about making our voice count. I knew very well that, as I said before, we operated so many restaurants and we dealt with so many landlords and authorities. And no matter how big you are or small you are, it's, you're always on your own pretty much. So when this was happening, I thought, we're not going to be able to make ourselves heard if we stays the way it is. So we have to get together, we have to create a group and make sure that our voice gets heard, as Frank mentioned, not just from the authorities, but also from the landlords, and it was also about, there were some drastic decisions to be taken and, and making sure that, not a single operator would not make too drastic of a decision. So kind of like have a group of people with whom to discuss and see if this is doable and be able to count on other people's opinion as well. It's you don't want to be left alone in terms of crisis.
Great. Couple of questions actually have come in relation to the opening of restaurants in less than 3 hours, and many of them are about reduced dine-in capacity. In fact, Chushen, you have a great fan, so I just want to say, of course, it's very nice. Hi, Chushen, huge fan of Cosmo here. Given the current situation where restaurants have to cut their seating capacity, and I'll be directing this question to all of you, of course. But for Chushen, will you be considering expanding in terms of floor size, since you can only have 16 packs per sitting now, and obviously now that with social distancing, it'd probably be lesser. What are you planning to expand your floor size to accommodate more customers?
I think that is very, very difficult for us, because it's not like we could, readily rent out, the concept next to ours, or because there are already tenants in there. We can't expand any, we can't do it so quickly. And also Cosmo is a very small space. It's a cozy space run by just 2 people. So if we expand, we will not be able to cope in that sense. So instead, we will be taking less guests per seating. So instead of 16, we will take maybe up to 8 to 10 per seating instead. So that would really greatly reduce our capacity. But I think that's something that can't be helped. We are communal seating like concept before this pandemic happened. But now that the pandemic has happened, we can't go back to that communal seating idea anymore. So we will have to take up other things like the retail sales to try to bring in additional revenue. Yeah.
So in relation to that, and this question is of course directed to all the restaurateurs, what are some of the strategies that you will be adopting during phase 2 when you reopen to counter reduced dining capacity? Maybe we'll start once again, you Chu Shen first.
Sorry?
What are the strategies that you will be adopting during phase 2 and perhaps even in the future to counter or to make sure that you alleviate the shortfall in revenue due to the reduced dining capacity?
Yeah, I think it is for us the biggest challenge, right, is to how do we bring Cosmo as a concept, into food that is not just our 6-course menu. So because our typical carte blanc menu has a lot of storytelling, a lot of these ingredients that are aesthetically filtered. So we thought of how we could incorporate that into retail products that that can be pre-ordered and then collected to go. So for example, in our roasted portobello butter, we use aesthetically filtered mushrooms. So we roast them. Sometimes it could be, due to the boxes, they get damaged in shipment, and then therefore they deem these mushrooms to be, not good for retail. Yeah. So we will try to incorporate, our core concept into these retail products instead, and we try to sell them as retail so that it's the same story, the same brand, same ethos, just that in different products that is different from our main 6-course carte blanc. So I think this diversification is something that is very important for us moving forward.
And Ping, how about yourself? Any strategies that you will be adopting during phase 2?
Look, I think what's going to phase people like Chu Shen and ourselves, and maybe also to a lesser extent Pepe, because he's got Prachi, which are small restaurants. These are small, squeezy restaurants. In different times, they were designed to create a certain atmosphere. The seating is close together. They're quite lively kind of places. In this post-COVID world, it's not going to work. So, and I think doing deliveries and all that helps when you are literally shut down. But what happens if you have a hybrid model where you have some sit-in and you are still having to do deliveries? And can you continue to do retail like Chu Shen says? You can do a little bit of it, but as she rightly points out, you're going to get caught between trying to produce for your retail customers as well your sit-in customers, probably satisfying neither. So I think one of the things that small restaurants will have to look at is, engineering the menu such that you can maybe do 2 sittings. Chu Shen might have been doing 1 seating during the good times, and from now she may have to do a 6:30 and an 8:30, try and maximize the same number of covers, but at different times. She might have to look at, same with us, looking at different products so that you have ability to perhaps increase your average check. So you make up for the 2 seats next to you that are empty. You have to look at various strategies, and some of them will work for others, and some, but all these small restaurants, Burn Ends, Brachi, Cosmo, these are restaurants that don't work in the post-COVID-19 world in the sense of the way the restaurant is designed. So you have to look beyond the structure of the restaurant. You have to look at how you operate your business. You got to be really agile, and you got to throw the rule book out the window. So I think there are various strategies you need to do, but all of them involve probably some compromise. You probably have to continue to do a bit of delivery, but you can't do as much as you were previously. Right? So all these things, I think all of us will have to make some adjustments to try and get ourselves as close to a revenue you had before. And if you can't, you have to cut your costs. You have to reduce your overheads, and that might mean restructuring your payroll, reducing your payroll, negotiating with your landlords. So I think all those strategies come into play in a time like this until you get back to a situation where you are getting to a point where your restaurants are able to operate at optimal level again. So it's going to be a tough picture, right?
Do you think customers will accept fixed time slots?
They have no choice. It's either they accept fixed time slots or you got a business. You know, if Brachi is down to half its volume, if Kaosmo is down to half its seating capacity, there's no chance you can replace that revenue from doing retail. There's just no chance. You know, if someone is spending $150 per head for dinner, and you have half the number of people spending an amount, you have half the revenue, you're going to close. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, actually, we are already doing 2 sittings in a typically on a daily basis. So we do both 6:30 and 8:30. Yeah, so it's not an expansion that we could readily do, but instead what we are doing is we are taking on events. Yeah, so during the circuit breaker period, we also did like a 3-course takeaway event. So, but we can only do for a very limited number of packs, and we have to stagger the intervals. Yeah, so I think what we can explore is lunch events or weekend events that could be done in similar fashion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about patching up the revenue from the lost seats. You got to do everything you can to patch up the lost revenue or cut your costs accordingly.
So
it is very difficult.
So maybe I can jump in and ask a question. So, you know, we all found out that phase 2 was going to start on Monday evening, right? So there must have been a mad scramble, you know, everyone's got really happy and then started scrambling, right? What have been the 3 biggest challenges in the past 3 days as you take on the huge task of reopening?
Manpower, I would say, is the first. You know, getting supplies in, and I would say the third one is complying with the new rules in terms of what it means on a practical level for us anyway.
For us, the same, yeah. Yeah, it's the manpower. We already we managed to call in about 5 of our ex staff to come back and join us right away. Yeah, the biggest struggle has been to try and get in the proper ingredients as well. There's some basic ones available, but there is obviously the suppliers themselves didn't expect the surge in demand, and there have been delays, cancellation. We got some products which wasn't up to par, even though the prices are up. I mean, food prices have gone up like up to 50% in some cases. So at the end of the day, you know, we you know, that's why I've been there today until the very last minute, just trying to you know, reinvent the menu, you know, just to juggle things a little bit to make sure that we come up with something that we can be proud of tomorrow, and obviously that represents who we really are, because, you know, when we open up, we're not gonna tell people, sorry, this is all we can do. You know, if we open, we have to be there with you know, our badge on our chest. So there's been a lot of that over the past few days. And back to, you know, what we were talking about earlier, how to, you know, all the spacing and you know, we do hope that customers do understand that not only we have new rules to abide to, but also we are coming out of, I mean, the circuit breaker lasted 2 months, but actually we've been feeling this since February. So we're coming out of like 4 of the worst month in our history, especially for our industry. So we have to make up some lost time and some lost revenue. Not only you know, make sure that we survive, but really there's a lot of recuperation to be done as well. So I think customers, you know, will understand. As a matter of fact, at Brachi as well, we are starting the 2 sitting from next week, because otherwise, you know, it won't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You know, we still need, even for a place with 16 seats, well, it used to be 16 seats, which is going down now. You know, we still need at least 14 people to operate the restaurant. When it comes to big, start. We have more than twice that number of people to operate the restaurant. So as I say, even the food cost has gone up a lot, and that has to reflect on our offering. Just to make sure that we can offer the best quality possible. Tomorrow and Saturday, we're only going to be offering a fixed menu. And actually going forward, that's what we're going to be focusing on as well. We may make a la carte available as well, but in order to offer a fantastic service and amazing food, really we may have to stick to a shorter fixed menu that may change weekly or seasonally or whatever. It doesn't have to wait for 3-4 months to change, but that allows us to concentrate because we cannot bring back all our ex team members. We brought back some, as I say, from today already, but we can't afford to have 80 people on board as we used to at Aura. So with the limited manpower, then has become a limited menu. Definitely no limits on quality, but we won't be able to feature 30 dishes anymore on the menu as we used to. It will be more like a 6-course menu with 3-4 amuse-bouche and 3-4 petit fours. So it's still like 15 items to prepare, and each dish actually sometimes contains up to 20 ingredients. So it's still a lot to do, and we just hope that people realize, understand, and appreciate it.
Okay.
Ellen, was there a similar kind of disruption for you when you heard the announcement on Monday night? Did the delivery service also have that sense of, we need to get things together before Friday?
Not too much on our side. It's more of advising the restaurants whether they can still cope with the capacity. I think a lot of folks might have forgotten it's Father's Day weekend. So there will be surge of advanced orders, and there are already a lot of orders that's being placed at certain restaurants as well. So I think on our side, it's more of those who are reopening. Now they might want to open more outlets to do delivery. That's one. 2, those who only have a few limited outlets, they are opening up for dine-in. That's when we'll advise them, hey, do you want to reduce your capacity? I think for us, we are not saying that, hey, you must continue opening up as many slots for delivery as possible. I think we have never been into taking up 100% of any restaurant's revenue. I think we are there as a supplement to them, and we guide them to do what works best for their business, right? So there are certain restaurants that we have already told them that you should close off your weekend for delivery, just so that you can see how it's going on if you don't think that you can cope with the capacity, right? And I think that's on our side. The key things that we do is look at who has high orders. We want to advise them, hey, do you want to switch it off now? You shouldn't be taking more advanced orders because there might be dine-in, right? And if you're taking in reservations, is your reservation full? If it is, stop taking in delivery orders because you might just compromise on your dine-in experience, right? Your diners are coming back for the first time after a long while. You want to give them a very good experience, welcoming them with open arms. So I think that's the only thing that we are really focusing on during these few days. Yeah, but other than that, it's business as usual.
A really good question came in about sustainability in the form of the environment. And the question goes, F&B operators actually able to prioritize sustainable or biodegradable packaging for delivery, even in this difficult and stressful times? And how can consumers help you all to make this possible? Maybe we start with Tushan, since a restaurant's kind of sustainable and in that direction.
Yeah, actually, this is a very interesting thing that we keep thinking about, because for us, we want to be as thoughtful as possible. We thought, this is also the reason why we did not immediately, switch to delivery of our set menus. Instead, we were doing bread and other retail, because we wanted to make sure that we get the packaging right, before we start doing like mass delivery of our meals. So over here, I have some of our packaging. Yeah, initially we thought, what's best, must be biodegradable. So I have some of our samples over here. Yeah, so for us, it is very difficult, to think of like what would be good we were told that biodegradable plastic is actually not great, because although it is biodegradable, yes it is, but it takes about like 600 years to for it to fully biodegrade. So it is actually not helping at all, and it is more cost to produce, takes more energy and time to decompose. And in Singapore, we incinerate most of our waste, and therefore for plastics, it is actually the next best alternative to reusable bowls and plates. So because it is a plastic container like this, it is clear, it is airtight, you can rinse it out and you can reuse it. But if you use something like this, for example, there's just no chance of reusing at all. And then both these gets incinerated anyway, and there's just very little chance for plastic to actually find its way back into our oceans, in terms of Singapore's condition. So therefore we started using things like this, and then we thought, what, let's just go with what makes the most sense. So this is actually very good, and many people can also reuse it. There are many people that bake things, they cook for their family, and then they can reuse them, take them and send them to their friends. And I thought that this is actually you may not expect this, but this is actually the next best alternative. Yeah.
Ping, any thoughts on the sustainability and biodegradable packaging question?
I think, Chu Shan makes a good point. I think the issues are complex, and in the Singapore context, it's difficult to make the right decision because it's not, we don't produce any of these packaging here, so they all get shipped in, right? And plastic is by far the lightest. Its carbon cost of shipping plastic is a minuscule fraction of cardboard packaging, right? Because for the same volume, it's much lighter. So, we have been using a variety of biodegradable ones too, but I think a lot of that is just force of habit, right? We're trying to do the right thing. But in reality, you may be ending up making the wrong choices. So we don't have a perfect answer. When I go out and do my own takeouts, I actually bring my own containers as much as possible. But it's in the context of this particular lockdown, I've seen a lot of packaging, a lot, and mountainous quantities of this stuff. It's pretty terrifying.
Okay, so it's almost 3 minutes to 10. So you know what? I'm gonna ask the last question. And my question is, what is a favorite quote, a book, a podcast that perhaps you can share with our audience at this time, which really helped you along during this CB period, this really tough and challenging CB period? Any one of you can go for it.
Well, I've been reading this book called Jerusalem, the Biography by Simon Sebag Montefiore, because it's very entertaining, so it's distracting me from all the worries. I don't want to read anything about COVID or all this other stuff. I'm inundated with it on my daily work already.
Anyone else?
I've got another Simon, but it's Simon Sinek. So I think it's just this quote that it's not about what you do, but why you do it. And it has been something like my guiding principle all along. It doesn't matter what you do, it's really why you do it. If you see, going back to what I shared in the first place, your sense of purpose. You have that, then you have a guiding direction, and that will usually lead you and push you, bring you forward even in challenging times. Yeah, so that's for me.
Jusian, Pepe? No?
Well, I haven't had time to read the book because I've been doing so much reading and research on well, first of all, how to reinvent ourselves, and also how to invent something new, which we did with Grammy, but also, as I mentioned earlier, we're working on this. I don't know if it's a cloud kitchen yet or what it is that is going to be, something else anyway. So lots of research, lots of reading, but mostly research, journalistic reviews, stuff like that, and data, and I realized that sometimes you read the headline and it looks like people are making gazillions by setting up this here and there, and then you go and look and read between the lines and realize that none of them is making money. So I guess what I learned is that you can never do enough research. You can never overthink a new project. That's what I've learned.
Right. So for me, I've not been reading any like book that is relevant to this situation. But for me, what I like to do is I've been watching a lot of Insta stories of what other restaurants are doing, what are other chefs doing around the world, and also I think what's very interesting for Singapore is that a lot of local farms, they actually see a surge in demand, due to all the panic buying, so I think it's very good that people are starting to give attention, to what can be grown in Singapore, to support local, to buy local. Yeah. However, unfortunately, we recently got the news that many of these local farms are starting to close. Like they couldn't make it, either by it could be a land recall. Farms that have been around for generations, are now are going to close after this period. I think it is very sad. Like something that we should. I think this pandemic, shows the importance of having local farms and being, at least able to produce a certain amount of food. And now that these farms are closing, I can't help but to feel a little worried. And also, there's already not much awareness about what could be local, what really thrives in our climate, what could be locally grown. And on top of that, now that all of these farms are closing, it is something that is very concerning to me. Yeah.
Wow. To be honest, we were gonna end off, because it's already 10, a bit past 10. But thank you for sharing that, Trishan. I didn't realize that farms were.
So sorry, I didn't mean to end off on a low note, but I just wanted to use my voice to share something that is actually happening. I think it's very sad that our next few generations, they may not be they may not know certain weeds or edibles that are actually native to our region anymore, due to all of these farms closing. And it's just very I just hope more people would would find out about this news and would talk about it, and hopefully we can have some sort of collective voice or action, that can be done, to help these farms.
Yeah, definitely food for thought for all of us this Thursday night. Thank you very much once again to all our panelists. I wanted to say just very quickly that we had a lot of questions. We couldn't get to all of them, but I wanted to let all our participants and all our viewers today that you can actually go to the Peak magazine, .com.sg, where we'll be writing an article about all the unanswered questions and all the answered questions, so you can know a bit more about the thoughts of all these restaurateurs and all the issues that we discussed today. Thank you very much for joining us. And Trina, please end us off this evening.
Yeah, I know I speak for, I think, everyone on this call when I say all the best and good luck for phase 2. We really wish you all the luck in the world. And to the audience tonight, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Join us again on June the 30th for the next table talk. That one is on supermarkets and it's called Aisle Panic, AISLE. So thank you for joining us and good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.